Going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam, back again. Hashtag homeless, day 72. Oh my. Okay, now there's a kid over at a picnic table a couple 100 feet away, and he's hitting rocks with a baseball bat and sending them flying over here. So I guess, if you see me get hit in the head with a rock, that's what's going on. So I just sat down at this bench, and I don't want to pack up and leave and go somewhere else. So I'm just going to sit here. Got a lot to talk about today. Crazy as usual. A little bit off the cuff is how I'm going to start, and I've got some notes from there. Let's see. It's going to be, video length will probably be long enough to get the trolls upset who don't like long videos. But if I do a short video, then the trolls who don't like short videos are going to get upset. So once again, what the fuck? All right, hold on. Oh, man. Okay, so yeah, I thought maybe I'd have a peaceful morning over there in that section of the park. Not quite. Parents are just like, whatever, little Johnny, just hit rocks at all the people in the park. Who cares? If that was my kid hitting rocks across the park at the people on the other side of the park, I would look at my son or my daughter and be like, what the hell you think you're doing? One more rock, and there's going to be a problem. And the funny thing is, that's all it would have taken. That's all it would have taken for either of my kids to stop doing that when they were that age. And but parents these days just let their kids do whatever they want. They don't get in the way. They don't try and stop their kids from being stupid. And look what happens. You saw the opening ceremonies at the Olympics yesterday or the day before or whatever it was. And that right there, my friends, is what happens when kids grow up without parents keeping them in line. You end up with that incredible shit show. So I'm not watching it. I'm just seeing it show up on Twitter. As I scroll the feed, I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. Ooh, look at that. At first, I thought maybe they were making a sequel to The Fifth Element. But turns out that was the Olympics opening ceremony. So, wow. I'm really... I'm not going to be watching the Olympics this year. I could care less. So have at it. Enjoy your sports ball and your track and field and, all that stuff, because I got other things to do than watch a bunch of drag queens parade around half naked on a table like they are the main feast in some sort of weird-ass occultic buffet. So... what's going on in the world of being homeless today? Way too much. Too much I don't even want to talk about. And let's see. Yeah, this video, like I said, this video might get a little long today because there's basically two things for me to talk about. And I'm just going to jump right in. The first thing was, in the homeless shelters, once again, I talk about this all the time, about how if you're a normal person who's never been homeless, who never experienced any hardship in life, and then you see on the news, you see homeless people on the news, and you hear that they refuse to go to a homeless shelter, and you might wonder to yourself, well, why would somebody turn down a free place to stay? That's on them. That's stupid. Why would you do that? And once again, I've told you over and over again, because a lot of times they treat you like garbage. At these places, they treat you like garbage. And I'm not saying that nobody treated me like garbage this morning, but there's a guy who I've talked about more than once who cops people an attitude every morning. Every morning, he's just this grumpy. He talks down to people, he ridicules them, he cops people an attitude, and he's just really snide and obnoxious with these people. And I compare being in a homeless shelter to being in prison, and a lot of times in prison, when there's a guard that acts like that to the inmates, that guard gets the crap kicked out of him. And so here this morning at the homeless shelter, I thought I was about to witness a knockdown brawl. because this guy was copping someone an attitude, and one of the inmates here at the homeless shelter turned around and started yelling at him, and it got heated. And he yelled at the guy and he said, "Look, man, you don't need to cop people an attitude like that first thing in the morning. You know what? I'm trying not to swear as much today, but a lot of choice swear words came out of this guy's mouth, and it got really heated. And they started going back and forth a little bit, and the dude got out of his chair, and I thought the fisticuffs were gonna be thrown down. And I thought the inmate at the homeless shelter was taking it too far, but I'm just kind of rolling my eyes in the back of my head thinking to myself, I'm like, it's just a matter of time, because this guy who works there cops people an attitude day in and day out every morning, and I see it every day. And he's just this angry guy. Maybe he's seen one too many things at the shelter. Maybe he's dealt with one too many problems, and he's jaded, and he's just, if you start stomping on the downtrodden and treating the downtrodden like garbage, and you're doing that to people who have nothing left to lose, you might be the one to lose something. That's all I'm going to say. I've seen it, and I almost saw it today. And so it blows my mind, but it doesn't surprise me. And once again, it's just another example in my never-ending supply of examples as to why a homeless person would rather sleep outside in the middle of winter and risk freezing to death than go live in one of these shelters to be treated like a little kid and have people talk to you with a condescending attitude and treat you like you're a worthless piece of trash, and they're doing you a favor by giving you a roof over your head. I would rather freeze to death than being treated like that by a group of people. So, now I'm not saying everybody there does it, and I'm not saying that, a week or two ago, they had to Narcan people 5 times in a week because they were coming in all high and overdosed on Fetty or heroin or whatever's going around town. And so, I get it. There's 2 sides to the story, but I will never, ever, ever question when the news media goes up and interviews a homeless person and they try to make them seem like an idiot for turning down a free place to stay. There's a reason why they turn down a free place to stay. And it's because they want to be treated like a human being, and they get treated better just freezing to death out on the sidewalk than they do in some of these shelters. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to jump into... We all know that the Supreme Court recently ruled that it's okay for cities to come kick the homeless people out of town and to round them up, maybe throw them in jail, treat them like garbage. And Jamestown is no exception. And you're seeing city after city now take advantage of that Supreme Court ruling. And, the leadership of Jamestown, they must have had an important meeting because, I Love Lucy Fest is coming to town, and we got to round up all this trash and get it out of town so that when the 20 idiotic tourists show up who want to, worship Lucille Ball, the only famous person to ever come out of Jamestown. And as a side note, remember, Lucy had to leave Jamestown, go to the other side of the country, and get away from this hellhole before she could be successful in life. I just want to point that out. But Jamestown wants to take all the credit that well, if it wasn't for this dysfunctional hellhole, and actually, they say comedians, the funniest comedians that have ever lived had to go through tragedy and heartbreak and sorrow in order for them to get that personality that allows them to be funny. And so maybe it is Jamestown's fault that Lucille Ball became such a funny human being. And, even though her stuff is so old, in black and white back in like the 30s or the 50s or whenever this was, I can watch an episode of I Love Lucy and it's hard to make me laugh. I've seen so many funny things in my life that I just don't laugh for nothing. But I can watch an episode of I Love Lucy and I'll still crack up. I'll still laugh. And I've seen them all. When I was a little kid and we had just a handful of TV channels, this show was on all the time. And so I've seen every episode. And to this day, I'm 48 years old. she's long gone, and this show is so old, yet it still makes me laugh. It still makes me laugh, and that is very rare. So maybe this dysfunctional hellhole is the reason why Lucille Ball ended up being so funny. And, maybe they can take credit for it. But because the I Love Lucy festival is coming to town, it was all over the news. I've been hearing about it from you guys in the comments, and I have been hearing people talk about it at the shelter. And I looked it up myself, and there was one newspaper article and TV news report, one after the next, that the Jamestown government is handing out an eviction notice to the homeless. And this is coming from the Jamestown Post Journal, the local newspaper. I'm just going to read you a newspaper article, and I'm probably going to interject with a few side notes as I read through it. But Jamestown declares disaster. They've declared a disaster, an emergency situation as the homeless population swells. The FJB economy. Here's what's happening in cities all over America. But here in Jamestown, officials are declaring a state of emergency as an estimated 300 people have set up unauthorized camps throughout the city. And these are just the 300 people that got caught because they put their camps right out in the open for everybody to see and right out on the beaten path where everybody goes. We're not talking about the people like me who are going to set up a camp in a place where nobody's going to know it's there. This disaster declaration is being declared in part to bring additional resources into the city to deal with its burgeoning homeless population. Why don't we just send all of our money over to Ukraine and Israel and all these countries? Why don't we just keep sending all these other countries billions of dollars to help them instead of, doing anything here in America for Americans, like, fix our bridges that are about to collapse and fall apart and, have giant holes rusted through them, or, heaven forbid, help people who are downtrodden and help people who can't afford groceries anymore and, do things for Americans. But, we're too big, we work too hard to send all of our money overseas. And so, obviously we can't spend money here to help people here. The city doesn't have a mental health or even a social services department. Those areas are led by the Chautauqua County and Chautauqua Opportunities Incorporated, and contracts with the county largely leads efforts to help the homeless. So the city does nothing. The city of Jamestown does absolutely nothing to help the people of Jamestown. They're just there. The people in charge of Jamestown are there to help themselves. City officials say that the emergency declaration will be used to secure additional funding from the county, state, and federal governments to deal with the homeless crisis in the city. While Jamestown police weren't necessarily clearing out an encampment in Brooklyn Square Wednesday night. Now, Brooklyn Square is where Crazy Tim Hortons is and some of the other things that I talk about in this video. Thursday's disaster declaration does give the city the authority to begin addressing encampments that violate city codes. In response, the city will implement enhanced policing, stricter enforcement of public space regulations, and rigorous adherence to city codes starting immediately. So yeah, they're going to start cracking down because the Supreme Court just ruled that it's illegal to be homeless, and so they can round these people up and take them to the camp or whatever they're going to do with them. So once again, if you're going to camp out, if you're going to be homeless, hide. Don't be out in the middle of plain view. Don't set up camp where all the other homeless are setting up camp. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest Griswold family at the campground when the bear comes looking for a snack. That's all you got to be. You don't have to be smarter than the police. You just have to be smarter than the idiots that the police are going to go to the easiest catch to cross it off their list for the night. And if you're hidden way back in the woods where nobody can see you and there's 30 people camped right out in the public square, well, guess who's going to get rounded up tonight? It's not going to be you. So, the city said in a news release late Thursday afternoon. This will include deploying a few extra law enforcement personnel to areas with high incidence, like Brooklyn Square, conducting regular patrols to deter illegal encampments, which means anything they can see from their car, because they're not going to get out and go for a walk, and strictly enforcing property maintenance, trespassing, and sanitation codes. These actions are designed to restore order and safety while safeguarding the rights and well-being of all residents. Jamestown officials are asking the homeless to use resources available through the county and nonprofits. The Post-Journal has reported in the past that some homeless are declining assistance for various reasons. I tell you the reasons over and over again on these videos. I keep telling you the reasons why. Maybe the city could listen to those reasons and do something about the reasons why the homeless decline assistance. County officials have told the Post-Journal that they can constantly encourage the homeless to use existing social services programs. City officials are now asking city residents to stop taking upon themselves to help the homeless and instead support existing programs that attempt to help those in need. So Jamestown is basically telling the citizens and the public of Jamestown that the homeless are to be treated like wild animals in the woods. You're not supposed to feed them. You're supposed to, if you have a nuisance bear in the campground, don't feed the bear. You've got to find a park ranger and tell the park ranger what's going on. Do not feed the wild animals. That's what. So now the homeless in Jamestown are considered nothing more than a bunch of wild animals. Don't feed the wild animals, and let the government take care of that problem. Jamestown residents are known for their empathy and generosity. I don't know where, I guess, there's probably a few. I'm thinking of the Jamestown resident that threw me out into the street when, I'm in I'm homeless now in a town where I don't know anybody and have no resources because of the empathy and generosity of one of Jamestown's finest residents. But once again, often providing food, supplies, and money directly to campers. The city said in its release, while these acts of kindness are commendable, just like they tell you at the national parks, while these acts of kindness are commendable, they can inadvertently perpetuate a cycle of dependency and deter individuals from seeking long-term solutions. I mean, that is the exact same wording almost as the signs at the national parks. If you feed the bears, now the bears become dependent on the food at the campground, and the bears lose the ability to go forage and find food for themselves. So once again, the homeless people of Jamestown are nothing but a bunch of wild animals now. The city encourages residents to channel their goodwill through structured programs that offer sustainable support and promote self-sufficiency. So what they're saying is, give your money to the government, and then whatever money's left over after we're done sending it over to Ukraine and Jerusalem and all these other places around the world, the pennies that are left over, we'll throw the homeless people a bone. We'll give them a roof over their heads and a bunch of condescending assholes to treat them like shit and make them feel like less than human. So, but leave it up to us. Leave it to the professionals. Do not feed the wild animals. That's the Jamestown solution right there. Do not help the homeless. Leave it to the government, because we all know how good of a job the government does when we leave things to their hands. City officials say the increase in homeless camping throughout the city is creating health and safety concerns that include human waste accumulating in public spaces. I did see a big giant turd on the sidewalk here in the park that absolutely didn't come from a dog. But there's plenty of woods, there's plenty of trees everywhere, but there was a big giant log just sitting right on the sidewalk. So yeah, human waste accumulating in public spaces, needles being disposed of carelessly. You got to watch where you sit. And trash and debris strewn throughout the homeless encampments. There's garbage everywhere in Jamestown. You don't have to be in a homeless encampment to see. I'm looking at least a couple of hundred pieces of trash laying all over the place, and I'm not anywhere near where the homeless are sleeping right now. So that's the whole town of Jamestown is guilty of leaving their garbage all over the ground because they're just a bunch of lazy slobs who can't use a garbage can that's 20 feet away. That's not the fault of the homeless. I'm sorry, but it's not. We've also seen increases in littering, with garbage and debris littering public spaces and attracting rodents, roaches, and other pests. Rodents, roaches, and pests are spreading from encampments to residential areas. Yeah, a bunch of hoarders who keep their trash all over the inside of their house will attract, rodents, roaches, and pests. They said, while unlawful fires in wooded areas pose a threat to neighborhoods and infrastructure. Yeah, heaven forbid a bunch of condemned buildings catch on fire and burn to the ground. Heaven forbid we save the city from having to come and demolish these things. But city officials said the improper disposal of needles significantly heightens the risk of transmitting bloodborne pathogens such as HIV, hepatitis B and C. Needles found in public spaces, parks, and residential areas posing a serious hazard to residents, city workers, and visitors. Additionally, the accumulation of human waste along the Riverwalk and public pathways, once again, further aggravates the situation. You got to watch your step, as human feces may contain various pathogens such as Salmonella and E. coli, viruses like hepatitis A and norovirus, and intestinal parasites, the city's news release states. The presence of encampments also increases the risk of spreading infectious diseases within the broader community. With limited access to sanitation and hygiene facilities, all campers are at an elevated risk of contracting and transmitting illnesses such as hepatitis A, tuberculosis, and, COVID-19. They're going to throw that in there. Get your masks, everybody. Get your masks back out because they're bringing back the COVID-19 scam. This exacerbates the burden on public health resources and heightens the overall risk of disease outbreaks, with potentially severe consequences for the entire community. In May, the Jamestown Fire Department responded to fires at 4 vacant condemned properties. Remember, 4 vacant condemned properties, all of which were occupied by campers, and all of which, are they planning on just leaving these things standing? But to date, there have been 21 fires involving vacant and condemned structures, along with 45 investigations into illegal burn complaints. One fire was started by a homeless person living in a city resident's garden shed without the homeowner's knowledge. Obviously, they weren't doing too much gardening, or they might have noticed someone living in the shed. I don't know. But starting several fires. If you have a garden shed and someone's living in it and starting fires, and you didn't notice that this was going on, where were you? What were you, obviously something's going on at that house. I think I would notice if a bum was living in my garden shed and starting fires. Within a day, I would notice. Fires have also been started and left unattended in wooded areas throughout the city. I can see the problem with that. I won't start it. If I set up a homeless camp somewhere, I'm not going to start a fire in a place where I can't put it out. So I will be near a source of water. I'm not going to tell you all where because that's for me to know and for you not to find out. The Department of Development and the fire department secure condemned properties daily. 1/3 of the properties in Jamestown are condemned. This whole city is, and it just gets worse every day. Every neighborhood you walk through is nothing but orange signs on dilapidated buildings and broken down houses. It makes Detroit look like a nice place to live. I'm serious. But despite these efforts, the Department of Development and the fire department secure condemned properties daily, incurring significant costs for materials and labor. Despite these efforts, disruptive campers continue to break into those properties using specialized tools to remove security boards and engaging in hazardous behaviors. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a solution of, we've got 1/3 of the city is condemned, broken down buildings, and then we've got, close to 1,000 homeless people walking around. Maybe somebody could come up with the bright idea of, hey, how about we let the homeless people rehab these broken down properties, and then they would have some place to live. I don't know, maybe there's an option there. But, heaven forbid someone thinks, logically or with common sense. But this ongoing issue not only endangers the campers, but also places the Department of Development personnel and firefighters at continual risk, the city said in its release. The city is also paying for city staff to clean up after the homeless. The rise in homeless camping throughout the city is also increasing crime, the city said, including theft, violence, harassment, trespassing, and vandalism. Oh my God! If this kid hits another rock over here, I'm gonna have words. Reports from downtown patrons and employees review frequent harassment, with individuals being targeted by aggressive behaviors and having personal belongings thrown at them. And I know exactly which guy they're talking about. That's the funny thing. While not all campers cause issues, a significant subset engages in violent and disruptive conduct, leading to domestic disputes, thefts from both residents and businesses, and acts of vandalism, once again, the city said in its news release. Specific incidents include the theft of city-owned garbage and recycling bins, bicycles from porches, shopping carts from stores, and metal components such as electrical wiring and air conditioning units, and pretty much anything made of copper is gone. All the copper has been stripped out of the condemned buildings of Jamestown by now. The Jamestown Police Department is stretched thin as officers are diverted from essential duties to manage these camper-related issues. This redirection of resources delays responses to other critical community needs and exacerbates the city's broader challenges. City officials said there are also growing challenges for downtown businesses and attempt to garner additional investments to fill vacant storefronts. Yeah, who in their right mind would open a business in this kid? I swear to God, if a rock comes anywhere near my head, it's over. City officials said there are also growing, downtown businesses have reported severe plumbing issues, with one business paying $800 a week to deal with issues caused by improper disposal of waste, including needles. I think they're referring to, no business allows homeless people to walk in and just use the bathroom. Not anywhere in Jamestown, so I don't know where that's coming from. I'm saying the severe plumbing issues are being caused by the lack of copper pipes in a building that once contained them the day before. So, reports of issues stemming from the encampments and disruptive campers are prompting some businesses to reconsider their presence in Jamestown. Anybody who showed up in this town in the last 10 years looked around and said, yeah, this is a great place to start a business. Well, then you are just a prime candidate to be one of the businesses that fail, because nobody in their right mind would open a business in this town. And the only business in Jamestown that could ever be successful is a business that feeds people who come in with EBT cards. And that's it. That's the only way you're making money in Jamestown. And even then, I don't know how you'd make enough money to pay your bills. Reports of issues stemming from the encampments and disruptive campers are prompting some businesses to reconsider their presence in Jamestown. A number of businesses are contemplating relocating outside the city limits or even out of Chautauqua County, putting their properties up for sale in the process, the city said. Yeah, good luck. This crisis also hampers efforts to attract new businesses and investments. Well, that's because they poured all their millions of dollars that they had into this I Love Lucy National Comedy Center, which is the only nice-looking building in Jamestown. And they thought, oh, that's going to solve all of our problems because people are going to come from all over the world to see the I Love Lucy Museum. And yeah, it was I guess it was a hit for a couple of weeks, and now it's just sitting empty. Like, I mean, there's other things to do. It's not going to have the same draw as, you know, the big arch in St. Louis, or, you know, some of the other tourist traps that, you know, Niagara Falls is going to have a little bit more pull than the I Love Lucy National Comedy Museum. So, you know, people aren't coming to Jamestown to, you know, I can't imagine there's more than 50 people coming to town for the I Love Lucy Festival. So, anyway, this crisis also hampers efforts to attract new businesses and investments. I think they have a lot of other reasons why no one would start a business or invest in this hellhole, as potential investors are deterred by the visible and pervasive issues associated with the encampments and the related illegal activities. All you have to do is look around Jamestown and see that, you know, 1/3 or more of the buildings are condemned. Even the main buildings around downtown are all empty, boarded up, and condemned. I think that's all I would need to see to say, you know what, let's go to a different city to start our business, because this ain't the spot. The decline in both tourist and business activity is further straining the city's finances. A continued exodus of businesses would be catastrophic for Jamestown. It would be catastrophic for Jamestown's economy. There is no economy in Jamestown. You can't go any less than zero. I mean, it's already catastrophic. You can't really do any worse than you're doing, Jamestown. So I'm just gonna, we're gonna talk about that. Undermining efforts to foster economic growth and stability. The ongoing presence of encampments and disruptive campers jeopardizes these efforts, risking a harmful downward spiral that affects all residents. And there you go. That is the talk of the Jamestown situation. It's been all over the news, and they got no solutions. All they're going to do is round up the homeless and take them to some other town. That's going to be their solution. And moving on, I'm going to talk about part 2 of what I was going to talk about. And let's see. Yeah, people just keep telling me in the comments, one of the comments I keep seeing over and over, besides just go get a job at McDonald's, is just drive a semi-truck for a living. As if, like, that's just something I can do tomorrow. Hey, give me the keys to a semi-truck. I want to be a driver tomorrow. And like, as if it's just as if it's possible to just walk over, buy a semi-truck, jump in it, and drive somewhere. First of all, I don't have a CDL. I don't know how much time it takes to get a commercial driver's license, but I don't even have money to go get one, or time. And I'm on federal probation, so I can't just freely travel. But I know you can do local deliveries and things like that. And I'm not saying that's an invalid or pointless suggestion. But some of you act as if jobs just magically show up on a tree and I can just walk over and pick the fruit anytime you want. It doesn't work like that. And the only people who leave those comments are people who are generally gainfully employed and have never had a problem looking for a job in their life. For one reason or another, I've dealt with this kind of stuff my entire life, even before I was arrested. I've been in the situation of looking for a job before, where people who have no idea what you're going through, I'll give you all kinds of pointless advice. It's my one thing about my career is it's not a very stable career. You bounce from one job to the next, to the next, to the next, and you never really stay at a company for more than a couple of years. And so I've been doing what I do for almost 30 years. And so that's just part of the territory. And there have been times where I was laid off, lost my job due to no fault of my own. And, people just show up and give you all kinds of nonsensical advice who've had a stable job for 25 plus years and don't have any idea what they're talking about. So I'm not saying I'm not saying that I wouldn't enjoy driving a truck for a living. I love going on long drives, and that's the kind of thing I could do. But right now, it's not something I can do. I put it in the same bucket as the ones telling me to start a lawn mowing business. People are showing up on the comments telling me to start a lawn mowing business. Yeah, while I'm homeless with no money to buy lawn mowing equipment or a truck or a home or a garage to store any of it in, yeah, I'm just going to go out and start mowing lawns. Like, come on, man. So anyway, I'm going to talk about, even when you're searching for a job like a remote software design job, you got to be careful. You got to be careful because there are a lot of scams out there. And so I could have been the victim of a pretty elaborate employment scam this week, but something seemed a little fishy right off the bat with this company. And even though it seemed like a waste of my time to make that 10-page document that I was talking about in the last two videos, the document that took me about 24 hours to create, I only did it because, and I said this in the videos, I did it because I have other uses for this document beyond the quote-unquote job opportunity that I was doing it for. So I sent this document back to this quote-unquote company, and all the communication was via email. And I thought, if I send this document to these people, I should at least get a job interview or something out of it. Well, I get an offer letter in the mail, in the email. I get a what looks like an offer, a job offer saying, congratulations, you've been hired. And now I'm like, wait a minute, this was fishy from the start. This was a little bit shady the whole time. And now you're giving me a job offer, bona fide job offer, without ever having spoken to a human being? Come on. So that was the last straw for me with this quote-unquote company. And in terms of the whole suspicious nature of the interaction so far. And so I reached out and I called the company to let them know what's going on. And they told me over the phone that they had been getting bombarded with phone calls yesterday, letting them know that there are a bunch of scammers are actively using their company to try and scam people into, well, ultimately they were trying to scam people into giving them their routing numbers and bank account numbers. But they were doing it in a pretty elaborate fashion, and I'll get into the details here. But they were using real job listings from this company's website and then impersonating being somebody from the company. And so I didn't give them any information that is not already publicly available on my portfolio, my website, and just general contact information like an email and phone number. And all of that stuff's on my resume, so no big deal. I didn't give them anything that they couldn't get on their own. I never gave them anything like a bank account or a routing number or anything like that. But after getting an email instead of a phone call based on that document that I sent back, in response to a questionnaire that I thought was already weird to begin with, I decided to reach out and contacted the company, and of course they said that it was a scam. Impersonating, somebody out there impersonating them. So, the funny thing is that I ended up applying for the actual job on that company's legitimate website as a result of it, and now I'm talking to the people in HR at that company about that job. So, if this somehow turns into a real set of interviews, it would be kind of ironic that I found out about the company because a scammer was trying to scam me. Either way, someone from their HR department is supposed to get in touch with me, and we're going to talk about the scam. But something to be aware of if you're out there looking for a job. I'm in a somewhat desperate situation, but even I had some suspicions about this particular job lead and the process that they were using to vet somebody. But I decided, like I said, to put that document together because I felt like it would be helpful for me in the long run to have this thing and turn it into part of my slide deck. that the scam, it was very elaborate, but there were some telltale signs. I was not at all surprised when I came to the conclusion that it was a scam. And then I reached out to the company to make sure I was correct, report it, give them all the information I had collected. And so some of the things to look for. The first thing I noticed right away, and this was from the very first email that I received, is that the address URL for the email address was kind of like the company's URL for their website, but it wasn't an exact match. That's the biggest giveaway right there. That was the first thing I saw that made me think this was a bit shady. And the second thing, this was a high-paying six-figure job, supposedly, and yet no in-person or online conference interview was set up before they handed me a job offer. You know, I thought I would give it another message or two, and if I get a real interview, then I would just chalk it up to the company using some sort of external recruiter, because companies sometimes do that, but my spidey sense was just tingling the whole time this was going on. I noticed here's another thing to look for. The person who was emailing me back and forth did not have a LinkedIn profile. And that's not a dead giveaway, but it's just another reason to be suspicious. There was also no record with doing Google searches that this person was associated with the company that she claimed to represent. So I believe if I had responded to the offer email, they would have sent me some elaborately crafted documents to make it look like onboarding paperwork, and at some point in those documents they would have requested my personal information, like a bank account and routing number to, set up your direct deposit and all that kind of stuff. And there was something else I noticed in the emails going back and forth, and they were asking me if I was willing to work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Central Time. But the company is located in Massachusetts, which is Eastern Time. And I thought that was a little bit odd. Sometimes companies have multiple offices or teams in different locations, but all of these details added up to nothing but a scam. So it's kind of funny because the good Lord took care of me, and he used the experience to kind of point me in the right direction and help me a little bit with my portfolio. And he gave me some information to share with you guys. So as soon as I logged into LinkedIn yesterday, I saw a post from a recruiter who was trying to fill a position at a company in line with what I do. And I saw that less than 5 people had applied for that job so far. So I applied for the job, and 15 minutes later, I got an interview set up for next week with that recruiter for that job. And it's definitely a legitimate recruiter at a legitimate company. I did my homework, and so I don't feel like this one's a scam. So, the Lord taketh away and the Lord giveth back, and it means that I still have 3 software design jobs in the bucket that I'm waiting to hear back from, that I potentially could land. And that scam opportunity could even turn into a legitimate opportunity because of the contacts that I made yesterday with that company, the legitimate company's HR department, talking about the details of the scam. So, and all of the work that I did for the scam company ended up being a big reason why I got a second interview at a not scam company, because I repurposed the document that I created and spent all that time on, and I sent it to this guy, and he jumped right back at me and scheduled a second interview with the company less than half a day later. So, a lot of that stuff that I shared with you is common sense, but it's real easy, even for somebody who's seasoned and knows a phishing scam when they see one, to get duped once in a while. And, even though this example felt scammy right out from the onset, like I said, I decided to play along with it and said that if they send me an offer letter without ever calling me, then I would know it's a scam and I'd act accordingly. And the only reason I went and created the 10-page document that took over the 20 hours was because I had plans to use it for other things. And they did a pretty elaborate, this whole scam was pretty elaborate. They came back to me with a document with a bunch of, first of all, they found a legitimate job posting at a legitimate company. And then they crafted documents with the company branding materials. And then they sent me a questionnaire with 17 questions to answer, like job interview questions. And they were specific questions that you would ask somebody doing this kind of work, a user experience design job. And they were very it was kind of crazy, the lengths that this company or that this scam artist went to try and convince somebody that they were legitimately contacting you from this company. It was kind of mind-boggling to, it makes me wonder if they were successful in scamming anybody out of their bank accounts, because I don't know. It was pretty elaborate. It was pretty elaborate. It was the questionnaire that they sent me. That was wow. They put a lot of time into this scam for just going after people to try and scam them into thinking they are getting this bona fide job that's listed right on that company's website. So, but I'm going to tell you about 2 examples where I got kind of duped by scammers and phishers. One of which caused me a day-long headache, and another that was more of a, oh, thank God I noticed that before I hit the button kind of a situation. So the first one, it was an email phishing scam. A few people at the company I was working for at the time, they fell for it. I was working at a company of around 50 employees, and I worked sort of directly with the CEO. I met with him about 2 or 3 times per week, and we were working on some marketing projects together, and it was in the middle of one of those projects that this happened. And this guy, the CEO, was known a little bit for being kind of demanding. As if I receive an email from him, I need to respond really fast, or else it's going to be another problem for me today. And so I get an email from him, and I can't remember what he was asking for, but it might have been something along the lines of, can you send me the password for this something or other ASAP? And I started to reply to him, but I was more like, I was going to send him a reply of, are you kidding me, dude? Really? You're asking me for a password through email? That's what I was about to type up a message to him asking him that. And because this was a highly secure company where people would not just do something like that. And so even though I started to type a message back to him with some smart-ass reply along the lines of, is this some sort of dumbass security test to see if I'm on my game? I noticed that even though the email was formatted with the same signature block and everything that the CEO used, it looked legit right off the bat. But I noticed that the URL of the email address, when I looked at the email header, was not the company's URL. It was a slightly different variation of the company's URL. And so I was like, aha, this is a scam. This is a phishing scam. So I turned it over to the chief security officer, and he pinged me back through the instant messenger saying that he already knew about it, and he's been dealing with headaches all day from the people who actually responded to the thing. They had to change that passwords to all kinds of shit, and they had to file a report that government regulatory agencies might have to look, all because a few employees at the company fell for the scam. Because this, really what it boiled down to is the CEO, like I said, he was demanding. If you get an email from him, he expects you to respond, drop everything and respond. And so these people in a panic, they responded to what he was asking for and sent him the fucking password. They sent him the password via email, and they ended up sending passwords to sensitive company data to a scammer through email. So, it's the kind of thing someone could easily slip on if they're in a hurry, like I said. It's not really a whole lot different than when I'm on Etsy. I get all kinds of fake messages from Etsy through my Etsy store. Messages sent to me by scammers pretending to be Etsy with Etsy logos and branding all over it. And they're asking for information that would allow them to hack into my Etsy account and ultimately my bank accounts. And every time this happens, I have to do a double take before seeing, oh yeah, that's a scam, and deleting the email. It's so common that Etsy doesn't even provide a method for reporting these things to them. They just tell you And they have a couple of bulletins that they post that they say just delete these when they come. They're Etsy's given up trying to stop it from happening. But here's another crafty way that a scammer can get their hooks into you, and it's by manipulating Google search results. So on the first day of a job as a user interface engineer, I was setting up a brand new Windows computer. And that's important because it's 1,000 times easier for a Windows computer to get hacked than a Macintosh. 1,000 times easier. It can happen in the blink of an eye. I was installing every web browser known to man. Chrome, Opera, Internet Explorer, with all of the previous and older versions that people still use, simultaneously installing those. And then I got around to installing Firefox. And instead of just going to mozilla.org, I typed Firefox in the address bar of Chrome, which took me to Google, where I clicked on the first link, downloaded Firefox, and installed it. And within the next 15 minutes, I noticed all kinds of strange things happening on my Windows box. And as I dug deeper into the issue, it looked like some malware got installed, and it was taking over essential functions on my Windows machine. And I was like, oh man, I was so irritated by this. But it was my first day at the job. So I spent a little bit of time. I ran Avast and some other cleanup tools. But this piece of malware was extremely stubborn. It tied itself deep into the Windows registry, and I could not get the thing uninstalled no matter what I did. And since it was my very first day on the job and I really didn't have to do any work today, I said, oh well. And so I did a complete zero drive reformat of the hard drive where I zero out all the data completely and did a complete reinstall fresh of Windows from scratch so that the computer was back to, day one, fresh out of the box, brand new. Whatever. It really wasn't a big deal at the end of the day. Like I said, I never even used this computer to do any work yet. But what happened? When I clicked the first link in Google to download Firefox and install it, after I went back and looked at this a little closer, the first link that comes up in Google was a paid advertisement using Google AdSense to override the top position and take over the top position in the search results instead of the organic search results. So it was a paid advertisement set up to look like Firefox, but it wasn't. It was a Firefox installer that was packed with a whole bunch of garbage malware and adware and plugins that are attached to it. And when I installed the thing, it completely wreaked havoc all over my Windows device. And it was because I was in a hurry and I wasn't paying attention that I fell for it. So in that scenario, I lost about an hour or two out of my day. It was no big deal. It was the first day on the job. They didn't expect me to get anything done that day. Whatever, it was done and over with. I never had a problem with the machine after the fact. The first day on the job like that is just getting your stuff set up anyway, so it didn't bother me. But I did have to reinstall all of my apps. I had to reinstall everything twice. I had to go through the setup process of this computer twice. And had I been using the computer for a few weeks, this would have been a much bigger problem. It would have been a big kibosh. Man, it would have put the kibosh on a lot of work that I was doing, and it could have been a multi-day problem if I had made that mistake after I had been using the computer for a few weeks. So always make sure you double, triple, quadruple check where you are downloading your apps from, and make sure that it's the genuine website that they are coming from and not some sideshow that's dressed up to look legitimate. Pay attention to the URLs in your address bar. And as for email, pay attention to the reply to account address when something looks fishy. And look in the email headers for anything that doesn't look legitimate. And you might need to dig into your email settings to see that information, but it's there. Each email app and email delivery system has a different way to go about seeing those things, but they're there. If you can't figure it out, just go to Google and type in how to do that for your particular email app. And don't blindly open files that are sent to you through email until you know for sure that it came from somebody legitimate. Either way, none of these situations resulted in me getting dragged through the mud, but, it didn't get out of control, and everything was, everything worked out in the end, and, no harm, no foul. But, these are just some handy tips to keep in mind so that you don't get, you don't have your life flipped upside down over some sort of scam that it's easy to fall for something like that, especially if you're in a hurry and you're not paying as much attention as you should be. So with that said, I'm just going to wrap up this video because we are running out of time and I don't want to go over an hour. I'm just going to give you a couple of plugs. Sign up for the email list, which is free.litgood.com. The photography store is at shop.litgood.com. And the digital chicken bucket is donate.litgood.com. And you can find me on the social media apps all over the place, especially Twitter. If you want to go check out a never-ending, all-you-can-eat meme buffet, check out my Twitter link in the video description below. And with that said, I hope you got something useful out of today's video. And I am going to get my tail over to Crazy Tim Hortons. I'm going to, walk by the homeless encampments because after the police cleared them out the other day, the homeless came back 15 minutes later and set their camps back up. So I'm going to go hang out down there, go to Crazy Tim Hortons, see if I can get a booth to sit in before the homeless come in and take a nap on said booth. And because the library doesn't open for at least another hour, and that's an hour that I can use to get something done. So I'm going to go do that. And I hope you guys have a good day. I hope you accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to get done today. And I will speak to you guys tomorrow. Peace out.